Good morning, everyone, and welcome to day one at CES 2022. My name is Natalie Novak, and I'm an agent at United Talent Agency. For over a decade, we have worked with our partners at the Consumer Technology Association to ensure that CES is not only the most important event in the technology sphere, but also for content, marketing, and entertainment. Over the next 2 days, the stage will feature many of the most exciting discussions featuring top executives from many of the most innovative companies. Please check the CES app and the programming signage posted here at ARIA and at all CES venues for the full schedule. While you're here at ARIA, make sure to check out the amazing exhibitors, including CES's first ever NFT showcase. Now, I'm pleased to introduce our first C-Space storyteller session. There'll be a foundational conversation about blockchain, crypto, and how it gave rise to the NFT industry. Please join me in welcoming to the stage Leslie Silverman, Head of Digital Assets at UTA, and Eric Calderon, founder of ArtBlocks. Welcome.
Good morning, everyone. Nice to see so many faces in the room, and great to see you, Eric. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So, as Natalie said, I'm Leslie Silverman. I am the head of digital assets at United Talent Agency. It's a division that we started in January of last year. And so we were the first talent agency out the gate to have a dedicated division for digital assets. And I'm joined by Eric Calderon, CEO and founder of ArtBlocks and artist. I had to sneak that one in there because we know your corporate title, but you truly are an artist and a creator, and I hope we get into that today. So the topic of our discussion this morning is NFT WTF. Hopefully there are some people out there who know what an NFT is, and hopefully there are more people out there who don't know what an NFT is. So I hope to really demystify that today with you and through our conversation. And so why don't we just start at the beginning? What was the first time you heard the word NFT or the term NFT, and when did it first light a spark for you?
Well, in 2017, there was a Reddit article, a Reddit post with a link to Larva Labs' website. Larva Labs is a group of developers in New York that created a project called the CryptoPunks. And this is actually pre the word NFT. This is really the first time that I was introduced to the concept of being able to prove ownership of a digital asset, which I think if there's like a single takeaway from people today, it's just that one thing needs to stick in your mind. Like, for the first time in history, we're able to prove that we own a digital asset. And so in some months before that, something around that was kind of floating around in my head, the concept of being able to use a blockchain to prove something, but I wasn't able to kind of like materialize it. And when I ran across what the CryptoPunks were doing, and you were able to go and claim this little 24 by 24 pixel image, it clicked. And the word NFT I don't think was being used yet. It wasn't actually until a couple of months later that the CryptoKitties project came around, and they kind of coined the phrase NFT, if I'm not mistaken, but also created a standardized smart contract for what is today known as a NFT on the Ethereum blockchain.
Can we just define NFT? I know that everybody, like, you're asked, okay, so what is an NFT? And you say it's a
non-fungible token. So
right.
if you have dollar bills are actually NFTs because they have a serial number. So they're actually unique, but let's pretend that they didn't have a serial number. If you owe me $10, I don't really care which 10 $1 bills you give me if you have 20 $1 bills, as long as I get my $10. So that's fungible. Right? So like a dollar bill is fungible for that reason. An NFT, a non-fungible thing, is something where I would care that you gave me this specific dollar bill because this specific dollar bill is unique to the other ones. So a non-fungible token is something that is guaranteed using blockchain technology to be 100% unique in a provable way that there's just no arguing. The blockchain will tell you, and you're able to prove it.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect definition. So why the blockchain?
So the Larva Labs project, the CryptoPunks project, I think is a really great example. If people are familiar with that project, there's 10,000 individual 24 by 24 pixels and images. They're like these funky looking punks. And they were free to claim, and today they kind of average $200,000 a piece. You know, this is kind of like this crazy madness that we're experiencing in the NFT space. But if Larva Labs had just had a centralized web server where you would go onto their website and log in with a username and password, and then just kind of click and claim this thing, and then everything was maintained within their server, I don't think that CryptoPunks would have the value that they have today. So why blockchain? Because the CryptoPunks were created and launched on a blockchain, which means that thousands of people, not just one server that they pay a monthly fee, but thousands of people with a vested interest in the accuracy of this blockchain, the Ethereum blockchain, have a way to prove that you own something that belongs to that project. So CryptoPunks on a centralized server would have been a cute, fun art project that would have been maintained within a private ecosystem. And instead, what they did is they allowed you to claim these cute little 24 by 24 pixel images on a public ledger. And that public ledger allows me to prove to anybody, without anybody else's permission, that I own that unique asset. And that's where the blockchain comes in. And you know, in 2017, everything was just like blockchain, blockchain, blockchain. Today, it seems like everything's just like NFT, NFT, NFT. That's great. Ultimately, these terms should go away. Ultimately, we should just understand that a digital asset has provenance and that you can prove what it is. And you'd almost be surprised to receive a digital asset that didn't have that provenance, that wasn't operating under NFT technology and hosted on a blockchain.
So while we're in the mood of defining things, we are hearing a lot of talk about Web3. We're hearing a lot of talk about the metaverse. So I think that it makes sense for us at the top of this conversation to talk about what those concepts are too, because in my mind, NFT exists within a Web3 environment. If NFT as a term goes away, then we're just in Web3.
We are in Web3.
Right?
Yeah,
so
for
what does
better or
that mean
worse,
to you?
right? So, you know, I think the number one thing about Web3, and this is, I mean, can I get a show of hands how many people have operated an Ethereum address or operated in Web3? Okay, so there's this moment that I think is very important in my life, and this didn't happen until CryptoKitties, so a couple months after CryptoPunks came out, where I logged into a website, not with a username or password, but with authenticated credentials of a blockchain address, in this case, Ethereum. And so what Web3 means at its very, very core, I mean, there's a lot of different definitions to it, but to me, Web3 is the idea that your access credential to access something or to prove ownership of something is not based on a username or password, but is based on cryptographic proof that you are who you are. So in the Web3 space, some websites, they allow you to register so that you can kind of assign a username, or so that you can add extra unnecessary, or not unnecessary, but like extra data to like your profile that's not necessary for the blockchain. But in general, when I navigate the Web3 space, I'm going to CryptoVoxels, which is a really beautiful 3D metaverse. I don't have a username and password. I log in with my Ethereum address. And then I go to the CryptoPunks website and I log in with my Ethereum address. It's the same access credential. And that same access credential can maybe one day be used on an access card and get you into a building in a way that can't be copied. Like NFC technology is pretty secure, but there's still always the question of whether it can be duplicated. Whereas like an NFT, you can actually prove that you are the owner of it, and it can't actually be duplicated unless you give up your credentials.
Right, so my user experience of that has been taking my crypto wallet, my MetaMask, but there are many others out there, to these websites as my access token. And I've been having a lot of conversations around the building where I work about what that means and why to go and set up a wallet and why to claim your Ethereum address. And it's a very exciting moment. It really feels like there is this urgency and push toward more of that.
Do you remember the first time that you logged in with your Ethereum address?
It was early last year. I set up my MetaMask. I stored my seed phrase somewhere. I can't tell you guys where. And it felt complicated. It doesn't feel complicated today, but it did feel complicated. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, definitely the first login was for the CryptoKitties project,
Right.
just so that you could assign a username. In fact, in the Ethereum ecosystem, for a long time, they would ping the CryptoKitties API to get your username in the Ethereum ecosystem. That was like the first time that you assigned a username, in my case it's Snowfro, to an Ethereum address. And that was kind of interesting because it's like that became the centralized database for usernames. And I guess something that I'll touch on, because you mentioned the seed phrase, a lot of people here didn't raise their hands, and I think that there's a really important thing to consider, that oftentimes when we enter the NFT space, we're entering for free. The crypto space, we're entering for free. Creating a MetaMask account, or a wallet, is free. And oftentimes you're being encouraged to do so by a friend that's like, oh, you should just give this a shot. In my 4 years of operating in MetaMask, I think that there's been at least a dozen people that I know that, because of the completely irrelevant financial nature of starting an account, 3 months later, you might end up with like a little NFT that was worthless when you got it, and then maybe like a year later, like it has some value. And at least 12 people that I know didn't take that original setting up the account seriously and didn't protect the seed phrase that you're given when you register. So I really like to take an opportunity anytime I get to speak to a group to say that the moment that you register that seed phrase, this is like you're entering a new kind of era in your life, and that moment you need to pretend like that is the most valuable asset that you have. There are many people in 2018 that did that to claim or buy CryptoPunks for $20 a piece, and those punks are worth $200,000 today, and they can't access them. So if you are going to enter the space, take that seriously, even if it's completely worthless in an empty bank account. It's essentially like a bank account. It's like a totally empty account, because you never know when something's going to have some value to it. And the moment that someone's like, I mean, I can't tell you how many people, I'm like, well, do you still have your seed phrase? And they just kind of freeze and panic. Like, I don't know. And I'm like, well, go find it. You know, I gifted people punks in 2017. I was like, go find that. And they don't take it seriously.
I wish I had been one of the recipients of one of those gifts in 2017, especially knowing what we know now about CryptoPunks. And just going back to that, I've had a conversation with the creators of the punks, and they said, you know, we created this generative art project, and then we really wanted to imbue it with this notion of ownership, and we didn't know how to do that, and we were reading a lot about the blockchain at the time. So what was the first moment that you thought about creating a generative project and putting it on chain? Take us back to that.
Oh, man. Well, first of all, Matt and John from Larva Labs, the creators of the CryptoPunks, are literally the reason that we're probably in this room right now. I mean, inevitably, first of all, there was quote-unquote NFTs right like before that, but they didn't really kind of have mass appeal. They were the first dominating NFT, and they were visionaries. They are visionaries. They're brilliant guys, and people to follow in this space if you really kind of care to understand what's going on. When I was claiming my CryptoPunks, so in the claiming process of CryptoPunks, you know, I have this like moment where I got this Reddit link, and I went to the website, and back then you had to sync your Ethereum wallet. Thank goodness for MetaMask, because things are just completely so much easier right now. And so I had to sync my wallet. It took 6 hours, and I was watching them get claimed, picked off, you know, and I was like, oh man, I got to get this thing to catch up. Claiming them was a really difficult process. You had to open up the smart contract and like execute smart contract transactions with typing stuff in. It was pretty complex. During that process, I claimed a bunch of zombies, and in the CryptoPunks project, there are regular punks, and then there's, out of the 10,000, there's 88 zombies, 24 apes, and 9 aliens. And what the CryptoPunks guys did is they were very deliberate about stating that these other types were more rare. They were less common. So I, of course, am a collector by nature, and I was like, oh man, I gotta get these like rare ones. So I started desperately waiting for my wallet to sync so I could claim all the zombies. I claimed 34 zombies. You know, I started selling them for $200 back then. A zombie today is worth about, I don't know, somewhere between $2 and $5 million. I don't have 34 zombies anymore. Obviously, like I've sold them over the time. But what's interesting about, and that kind of goes back to the private key thing, like be careful with your private keys. They can have so much value out of nothing. As I was claiming the zombies, I thought that it was kind of unfair and selfish that I was able to claim the ones that I wanted. I claimed them anyways, because if I didn't, the person behind me was going to claim them, so I didn't really care. This is, you know, the Wild West. But during that time, I thought, you know, I knew enough about smart contracts where I thought, hey, like the smart contract can actually give me something based on odds or a probability. So if there was going to be 88 out of 1,000 zombies, I would execute a transaction that just said claim, and the smart contract would just randomly assign me a number. And if it was a zombie, it was a zombie. If it was an alien, it was an alien. And that's the very first moment where I thought the blockchain could be taken yet another level. to actually assign you the output of a generative algorithm instead of letting you pick the output of a generative algorithm, which is what claiming of the CryptoPunks was.
Amazing. Okay, so we have also talked about a smart contract several times, and I don't know if anyone in this room knows what that is. And so I will say for me, my background was in contemporary art and fine art, and my first aha moment about NFTs was this understanding, which happened at the end of, I guess, going into 2021, at the end of 2020, and realizing that smart contracts guaranteed artists or creators or anybody who creates media, puts media on the blockchain, a royalty, a participation in their ongoing revenue stream. For me, that was revolutionary. I still consider it to be revolutionary. I knew that it would kind of upend the art world in some way, because that is something that never existed before as it relates to artists or creators. So can we talk about how the smart contract, I guess, functions to ensure this ongoing revenue stream for creators?
Yeah, so a smart contract, at its very bare minimum, it's like a paper contract, but it's operated by a computer. So think of it as like the most ruthless contract in the world, right? The computer says, did this happen? Yes or no. If you take out a loan on a smart contract and you don't pay it back, there's no like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm late. No, like the smart contract's going to say you lose your collateral. It's that straightforward. And that's the power of the Ethereum blockchain. When you, depending on how deep you are into blockchains, we have like the Bitcoin blockchain, which is really purely a financial instrument, really. And then the Ethereum blockchain builds on that and then allows a second layer of operation on the blockchain so that people can create what's called a smart contract, which enables people to interact with each other in a rule-based system that is immutable, which means it can't be changed, and therefore irrevocable or irreversible. In the blockchain space, the secondary market royalty concept is actually something that's really interesting because it's allowing the artist for the very first time also in history to participate in their own success. And I personally have benefited significantly from this, as have many, for example, art blocks artists that have now quit their jobs and pursued generative art full time, because we're talking about, in some cases, significant amount of money as these NFTs are traded on the secondary market. What's interesting about the secondary markets, though, is that it is actually a theme of Web3. It's actually not a requirement of Web3. So there's still an honor system there, but it's part of this revolution. So, for example, OpenSea is the largest platform for the trading of secondary market NFTs, and OpenSea built the royalty into their smart contract to pay the creator when an NFT is transferred. NFTs can be transferred from one person to another without any limitations. So ultimately, there's no actual way to completely enforce the secondary market royalties, unless you restrict me from being able to transfer my goods, which would essentially say like you prevent me from handing you something. And there are some blockchains that are kind of integrating things like that. In the smart contract world, in the Web3 world, there's this beautiful thing that's happening where, because of this new, it's like a revolution. There's like a new class of creators and a new class of technologists. Platforms are respecting that concept of allowing an artist to participate in their own success. And what's beautiful is that due to the transparency of blockchain technology, and this is back to why blockchain, you can see the day that I claim my CryptoPunks, you can see the day that I transferred my CryptoPunks, you can see the day that I accidentally burned a zombie, which basically means that I threw it away on accident, of course. You can see all of that, which also means that as an artist, you can see people that are transferring your art. And I don't necessarily think that artists need to go out and say, hey, I saw that you sold something, give me my royalty. Like, I think that this is kind of evolving in a way that actually feels really nice and is very cultural. Like, it's a cultural norm in the NFT space. But the fact that OpenSea and all of the other major marketplaces are respecting this consideration of royalty by the artists, which in some cases can program the royalty that they expect on secondary market sales into the smart contract. And then what we're waiting on and we're hoping for is that as marketplaces pop up, they respect that standard. So another marketplace out there is called Rarible. Rarible reads the art block smart contract anytime an NFT is transferred from one person to another, or anytime an NFT is sold from one user to another. It reads the smart contract, queries the royalty that the artist is expecting, And then the beauty of blockchain is that it all happens automatically. So the moment that somebody purchases an NFT on Rarible from one person to another, the Ethereum, the ETH that is sent, is automatically split between Rarible, the artist, and in our case, in our blocks, the platform. And this all happens seamlessly with no authority. It just happens automatically. And it's really just kind of one of those beautiful things about blockchain technology that is facilitating the kind of this explosion of culture.
What I've seen as sort of an unintentional consequence, but a really interesting one, again, going back to sort of my art world roots, is that this functionality has actually stimulated secondary market trading. So artists want their artworks to trade, and they want to create new value for the community of collectors who are buying their artworks, so that they continue to trade and so that those artworks continue to be viable. The difference between the NFT space and the traditional world is that happens really quickly. I think the closest thing I've understood is that it's like media sitting directly on top of a financial tool, and that is an acceleration, So you see this trading happening, and you see artists encouraging trading because they want to see more people enter into their community. So I think that's the one thing that we really haven't touched on that I'd like to spend some time talking about is what is the community in this space? What does it feel like? What does it feel like today as opposed to what it felt like when you first joined? And how can we expect it to grow over the course of this next year?
Man, community, it can be your best friend. It could also be your biggest enemy. We live in a culture where there's this platform called Discord, which originally was created for gaming, for people that play games to get together and talk about games. Discord has become the headquarters of corporations. So Artblocks is a corporation with 23 employees. There's two Discords. There's the public Discord and there's the private team Discord. All of the things that happen, other than the occasional email by the older folks like me and a couple other people that prefer email as a method of like formal communication, but like the young ones, they don't send emails, they just communicate on Discord. And Discord is where this kind of all originated. So a little bit of a backstory, I claimed all these CryptoPunks, and then I didn't have this one called an alien, and the alien is like pretty rare. And CryptoPunks drew me into Discord in 2017. I didn't know what Discord was. The Larva Labs guys set up a Discord. I wanted that alien. I spent 4 years, every single day, in that Discord, under the premise that some random person that had an alien, there's only 9 of them, would just dump it, just maybe because I can't afford those crazy high things at that point. It never happened, but it's the beginning of what kind of creates these communities. Like over that time, let's say there was 50 people in that Discord, and then a year later there was 100 people, and then a year later there was 400 people, and a year later there's like 15,000 people. All of the conversations that happened around the Web3 space at some point like touched the CryptoPunks Discord. And now there's hundreds of Discords that are all NFT. Every NFT out there now has a Discord. I guess I can't think of a single one that doesn't. And now this is our headquarters. So we have a customer service channel. It's called user feedback. And man, when there's 40,000 people in your community, it's hard to please 25, much less 40,000. So guess what? Somebody has a bad day in the trading of NFTs, and they're in that user Discord, that user feedback channel, being like, "This is terrible. Artblocks is dead. You guys are terrible managers." It's like that feedback is so instantaneous. It's very raw, and it's something that is part of this culture. Like we can't just turn that off. That doesn't make sense. But it's like being able to call customer service or leave a comment, but everybody in the world can read that comment that you just put in the comment box. And it's just like, it's a whole new paradigm of organizing communities, that level of transparency, even if it's really bitter commentary, which, man, I go to bat fairly often in our Discord just to kind of like stand up for what we're doing and kind of present our long-term vision for the platform. But every single time somebody does that, it creates this transparency of like what the user feedback is and what the feelings are in that community. And that is why the NFT space has been able to grow. And then you add Twitter to that, what we like to refer to as crypto Twitter, because if you are a member of crypto Twitter, you literally, if you look at my Twitter feed, I was never on Twitter before blockchain stuff. So if you look at my Twitter feed, it's literally all 100% NFTs with the occasional promotion from Twitter. And if you combine, this kind of free roam Twitter space where you get to communicate with the outside world, and the combination of that with like your Discord presence inside of a small community or a big community within Discord, the dynamics are just completely unprecedented. Like, I don't know, maybe because I didn't know what Discord was, maybe I'm way late to this whole concept of community, but to me, it's mind-blowing every single day to come into Discord, to be able to live within this community, and then how that translates, how people post in Discord something that was tweeted that affects the entire ecosystem, and vice versa, how somebody on Twitter will post something that happened within the Discord to inform everybody in the Twitter space about what was happening that day inside of the Discord. It's a really wonderful technological advancement, and I don't know that, I can at least say that Art Blocks wouldn't be what it is today. It would have taken a lot longer to get to where it is today if it wasn't for the existence of Discord, which was made for gaming. So it's pretty crazy, and I encourage people to participate in it. It's intimidating. Discord is like, there's a whole bunch of mental health things that need to be discussed about Discord because it's really, it's taxing. But it's like a renaissance of information and community that I also think it's really, like, it would bum me out to think that people didn't also kind of get that experience, no matter at what stage you are in life. Like, I think it's something that's kind of interesting, and people should, dip their toes in that water and see what it's like.
We talked a little bit about sort of Web3 hygiene and safety. So I think I would be remiss not to mention, because I had a personal experience with it, if you do set up a Discord and you do set up a MetaMask and you do link those two things, don't ever click on any links within your Discord
God.
DMs.
Yeah.
I fell prey to such scam, and there are things happening like that in this Web3 world. I think, we talk a lot about that, storing your seed phrase correctly. We didn't talk about cold storage devices,
Hardware
but
wallets,
those are also really, really important. Setting up a wallet if you are going to hold crypto and hold NFTs. And then also being cautious about what you click on in your Discord messages.
Some of the most intelligent people I know have been scammed in the crypto space, and you really have to enter understanding that if it sounds too good to be true, it is. Period. And if you are going to take it seriously, it's one thing to save your seed phrase when you're just kind of like dabbling. But if you're going to take it seriously, you should purchase a hardware wallet, and you should use that to operate, because the chances that you will be scammed are infinite. It is 100 times more difficult to scam you out of your NFTs or out of your crypto if you're using a hardware wallet than if you're using just like MetaMask natively. So definitely take that into consideration, and there's plenty of good options out there these days.
Totally. Yeah, and just on the community side of things, I think, it's really helpful to hear that a lot of that community lives in Discord, a lot of that community lives on Twitter. What are your predictions about how this community grows? We've seen over the course of this past year, celebrities jumping into the NFT space, launching their projects, supporting projects. We've seen major brands entering into the space, launching their own NFT collections, celebrating artists who are participating in the NFT space. So how does this grow, and what does that growth look like?
Well, I think you probably have an incredible background as to like the traditional art world and how this is entering, and I'm going to ask you the same question.
Sure.
But really, something that's interesting to think about is just how many eyes are shed or brought into this space with a simple tweet from a celebrity or a simple tweet from a brand. And there's two ways this can happen. A celebrity or a brand can just bully their way in because they have millions of followers and they can just kind of do something, or they can collaborate with an existing person in this space. Because, the subjective quality of what is happening in the NFT space is all over the place. But people get credit for being OGs, for being there early. People get credit for establishing new ways of creating NFTs. People get credit for establishing new ways of creating art. People get credit for being total lunatics and as part of their brand and part of their image. And these are all really beautiful things because those people have established a brand within the NFT space that was pure. It was just there. Something I like to, when I was claiming CryptoPunks, there was no way that I thought that there would actually be value to these things. There are actually a group I'd say maybe like 200 or 300 nerds in 2017 that just thought this was just like, what, this is totally wild. And we were literally all buying each other's art and like nerding out with each other. So there's this, those 300 people have been around. A lot of them left because, you know, when crypto falls apart, people kind of leave. And I think there's like this short-sighted nature of, you know, cycles that we also need to get past for crypto to have a massive adoption. But yeah, there's this opportunity for these brands, these celebrities to come in and elevate these people that have just shown so much dedication and passion to this crazy world that we're experiencing. At the same time, enter in a way that doesn't feel so square peg round hole. Yeah. And that brings infinitely more eyes to the projects because the people that have been around for a while, they actually want to participate. And I think, you know, for example, Paris Hilton, which, you know, unfortunately wasn't able to be here today, like she didn't just come in, she started collaborating with other artists in the NFT space. And she's done a really phenomenal job of interacting with the space. And there's many that I would say have not done nearly that well. So, you know, now, and I'm interested kind of from your end, like where does this go from
you echo my thoughts and sentiments exactly. I mean, I spend a lot of time talking to the agency's talent about what this space means for them and how to participate. And since day one, I feel like I'm, you know, the Whole Foods of NFTs. I talk about an organic, you know, relationship to this space and being authentic, right? So it's not about coming in and grabbing a quick bag of cash. It's really about how do you show up authentically in this space and actually demonstrate to this community, which we've talked about is, you know, hot and cold, right? Like you really want to engender goodwill in the community. So how do you do that? You do that by supporting the existing community first. So we talk a lot about, you know, here are some artists you should be looking at, and here are some creative projects that you should be supporting before you try to go and take yours. You know, we've seen brands come in and take tremendous chunks of liquidity out of the environment without ever having done anything to put into the environment. And I think the gold standard will evolve rapidly, as does everything in this space. And the gold standard is going to become support the ecosystem first before you take from the ecosystem. So I talk a lot about that with our clients. And collaboration, you mentioned, that has been the most exciting and fun part of our job, my job, is to identify this new generation of digitally native talent, creative people, artists, and pair them with people who don't necessarily have a digital artistic voice and see those projects take shape. You know, it elevates the creators that are native to the space, and it elevates the person who's outside of the space and wants to get in. And I think you're gonna see a lot more of that collaboration. I think you're gonna see a lot more of, you know, hopefully celebrities and brands supporting the space, learning about the space, doing their research before they enter in and take from the space. That would be my hope. I mean, I helped, you know, champion a project that L'Oreal Paris did at the end of last year. And what I think they did so beautifully and meaningfully as a brand is that instead of selling NFTs and, you know, taking theirs, what they did was they supported artists, they commissioned artists to create their work, and then they let the artist keep 100% of their proceeds. And then the half of the secondary market proceeds will go to support, through the Women of Worth Foundation that L'Oreal oversees, a number of different charities. So do they profit right out the gate? No. But do they showcase their support for digital native creators and shine a really important light on female creators? Because there has really been an imbalance in the NFT space? Yes. And so I think the one thing I also want to say to this group and anyone who's watching is we're still early. You know, Eric's been around since well before me. I've been in this space since well before a lot of people, and yet, like, those of us who are in this room today and who are listening, if you're jumping into Web3 today or setting up your wallet or participating in purchasing an NFT on OpenSea or Rarible or any of the other platforms, you're early, and congratulations. You know, this is going to roll out over the next several years, and it's going to do so at an accelerated pace.
Yeah, the friction of participating today cannot be the same friction for mass adoption. So you know you're early if you're grunting when you're trying to create your wallet.
Absolutely.
Or when you're trying to buy your first NFT, or when you're waiting for your transactions to clear and you're just like, this is just like, what, who's gonna do this, right? It does become second nature. It does become like really natural, but that initial friction is completely unreasonable to expect that the average consumer is going to want to participate in. So you're going to see a lot over the course of the next couple of years of that friction being reduced, which in some ways means custody, right? It means that you won't have to deal with the blockchain directly. And there's something kind of in the Web3 space that people just cringe at, because the whole idea is that you own your stuff. But there's two components to this. One, you own your stuff. Two, your stuff is provable and it's provably owned and it's maintained on a public ledger. So yes, the ideal world is that you own your stuff and it's maintained on the ledger and it's all, decentralized. But for society to kind of integrate into this space, it may not be possible to ask people to completely just degen into the concept of participating in the Ethereum or any other ecosystem. So I think the next couple of years, now that I think, we as creators, what we seek is validation, at least for me. I don't feel like I'm someone that's driven by money. I'm driven by validation because I have all these crazy ideas that in my life, and my poor wife at some point has probably thought that I'm a complete lunatic. And so as we get validated for these things that we really just like dedicated so much time and effort into, that's what we're looking for. And that validation has now happened, right? Like that validation has now happened on 10 counts. And it's not just for me, it's for hundreds of creators that are in this space that are feeling validated. And so now we feel the confidence that this is actually going to be something for the future. Maybe it won't be, hopefully it won't be so speculative. Hopefully it won't be such like a madhouse all the time with like cycles. Hopefully this will just be a technology that allows people to prove ownership of something digital with little friction. And I think what we're going to see at CES over the coming years is a slightly bigger integration of NFTs in ways that makes it easier for people to operate in the ecosystem. And that's where we're really going to start seeing mass adoption. So I agree it's early, and as long as it's hard to operate, it's still early.
I think it feels like a pretty big validation of the space itself that we're sitting up on a stage at CES this year.
This is pretty wild.
I can imagine that the future iterations of CES, this NFT presence and this Web3 presence is just going to grow and expand. So I just want to give you a moment to talk about you as an artist and Art Blocks and your platform, and what can we expect to see over the course of this year? What are you most excited about?
Oh man, so Art Blocks kind of started as this hobby for putting generative art on chain. It has turned into an organization of 23 people in the course of a year. And so, we kind of went from kind of this little idea, this hobby, to creating a product that has now had over $1 billion in secondary market sales. And that wasn't part of the plan. A community in Discord of 7 has grown to a community in Discord of over 40,000 people. That wasn't part of the plan. And so we've been validated, at least my crazy ideas in this case have certainly been validated. And what we're going to do this year is we're going to build this team of people, of brilliant people, to create the best possible platform to do what we're doing. And what that doesn't show a lot outwardly, probably, because when you grow from 4 people to 23 people in a 4-month time period, I don't know. I mean, to me, it's unprecedented, I guess, in my world. I have another business where I started in 2003, and I grew to 15 employees over the course of 19 years, right? So it's a very different time scale. So Art Blocks this year is going to become very internal facing. I think that in the NFT space, we operate in ways where people don't really understand fully the concept of business. And so Art Blocks is going to become an organization that's really focused on business so that we can survive the next few months and years and decades of the NFT space without, just kind of concentrating on the now.
Okay, and what about you personally? I think the thing I'm most excited about is your original Art Blocks project, the Chromie Squiggle, is gonna do stuff this year.
Yeah, hopefully the Chromie Squiggle appears maybe in some sports jerseys this year. And the Chromie Squiggle was a proof of concept project. I know we're out of time here, but it was a proof of concept that turned into the first project of Art Blocks, and it's something that also validated me as potentially as an artist, which is something I never even thought was possible either. So her introducing me as an artist is kind of a mind-blowing thing as well.
I like to do that just to,
But we're
ruffle
going to see all
feathers.
sorts of weird stuff this year. We have like a golf DAOs that are controlling golf courses, and a DAO is buying a soccer team. And I mean, there's just all this crazy stuff that's coming in the NFT space. Hopefully it blows everybody's minds as much as it blows my mind. But I encourage people just to dig in and read and listen and figure it out. It's really a lot of fun.
It's already been an exciting start to 2022. And thank you again for being here with me. And
Thank you for having me.
thank you for
This is
being such an
crazy.
amazing audience. And
Yeah.
enjoy the rest of your day at CES.
Thank you guys.